Ladies and gentlemen, I will call the Budget, Finance, and Investment Committee to order. And before we begin the agenda items, I'm going to ask our Emergency Management Director, Mr. Roger Allen, to come to the table, and he is going to give us a brief, a short briefing of a tragic news story, and then I would ask us to pause for a moment of silence afterwards.
What she's talking about is this afternoon we had a terrible event take place at Fort Hood, Texas. I'm not sure if everyone is aware of it or not. But in the processing center there at Fort Hood, 1 to 3 soldiers started open fire on the rest of the soldiers and killed, at last count, 12 and 20 to 30 injured. And it's a terrible event taking place here in our own country and on our own base with our own soldiers, and we would like to keep their family members and friends in our prayers.
We will pause briefly. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Allen. Okay, we will begin with our agenda, and the first item on our agenda is to approve minutes of our October the 8th committee meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Mr. Beatty, our trustee, will give the investment report.
Thank you, ma'am. See on your copies, we had 2 bids over the last month. In fact, one this week, and rates are still down just a little bit. The LGIP was down 3 basis points to 0.46%, and the bids were down just a little bit over what we've gotten over the past several months. So everything just kind of steady to weak.
Motion to approve amendments.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner P. Any further discussion or questions for Mr. Beatty? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Our Finance Director, Mrs. Nolan, will give the fund condition report, and she will begin with the development tax.
We received $72,000 for October. That brings our year-to-date total to $375,750. We are still on track to meet our budgeted estimate.
Okay, let's move now, please, to cash balances.
Total cash at the end of October is $138,737,000, with $99,605,000 being operating funds, $39,133,000 being borrowed funds.
Questions or comments about the cash balances?
You've received your revenue review from October, comparing that to the last 5 years to see about where we are in our revenue in the general fund. While we're down 20.48% collected compared to 23% collected in the last 2 years, we're still ahead of where we were in 05-06. You can see across the solid waste is ahead in total. Road and Bridge is in the ballpark along with schools. And as far as the expenditures, we are still within where we should be on our budget.
Motion to approve, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin. Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the insurance report. Mrs. Miller. Good evening.
We have 4 months of data so far into the fiscal year. The report is favorable this month. If you look at the first report on the medical, dental, and vision, the plan cost per employee per month, you'll notice that we've had favorable months every month except this month, and we're just pretty much even with last year for this month. If you look at the care here costs, they look like they're up and down over the months, but the average of those is equivalent. It was $30.68 on a per employee per month basis this year and $30.07 last year, so that's holding flat. And the total per employee per month core plan costs are down year over year. The only item I see of concern right now is looking at the past 4 months of claim data. We do have 39 large claims over $25,000, but only one of them is over $100,000. Last year at this time we had 36 claims over $25,000, but we had 6 that were over $100,000 at this time. So speaking as far as magnitude of these claims, there aren't as many that are as high. And our GASB liability is now at $22.3 million for October. The next page is the backup to those graphs, and the only thing I'll call your attention to here is the fact that if you look at these first 4 months of data compared to the same time period last year, the per employee per month for the medical, dental, and vision claims is actually down 9.8% for that same time period, and the total when you roll in the care here costs is down 8.9%. So that's a good start. The other report is our work injury fund report. We've had 4 consecutive months of lower claims than last year, and when you look down in the second grid, you can see that the on-the-job injury claims are indeed starting to come up relative to the workers' comp claims as the workers' comp claims go down. That's normal. That's what we would expect to be seeing now that we've been on the OJI program since January. We do still have 42 open workers' comp claims worth roughly $1.1 million in reserves for those. 9 of those are only open for medication. 8 are actively engaged in settlement, and 5 of them have reached maximum medical improvement and will be moving into the settlement phase in the next few months. So we're trying to work to get the workers' comp claims closed. Now there's some that are historical and will be going forward, but we're making progress. And on the next page, I'll call your attention to the yellow box, the year-to-date box, which simply shows that if we compare the first 4 months of this year compared to the first 4 months of last year, we are at about 57.5% of where we were for the same time period last year.
Any further discussion or questions, comments for Mrs. Miller?
Motion for the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Jordan. Seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Mrs. Miller. We have an ambulance service fund budget amendment. Gentlemen, if you will turn to section 3 in your notebooks. And Mr. Nunley is here to explain this amendment.
This was money that we've collected for doing our special event coverage. The totals are listed there at the bottom, and we just asked to put that back into the accounts for paid for doing the service.
So moved.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Schaefer.
My finance speaker.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you. From the Sheriff's Department? I'm not seeing anyone from the Sheriff's Department. Oh, there we go.
Good evening.
Good evening, Regina. We have a budget amendment.
Yes, ma'am.
This amendment is to move money around for a requested school traffic position out at Blackman High School. The traffic out there has reached to the point where they need a second traffic person. And we have found the money within our budget and request that tonight.
So moved.
Commissioner Salmon, thank you.
You need it.
So how much does this person make on a school year?
Second.
It's good, thank you.
I'm sorry, I spoke to her. How much does this person make in a school year?
For this school year, it will be $39.78 because we didn't start them in August when school started. So this will be, if everything passes, we'll start on November the 16th.
So, add a couple thousand more.
Well, it's 32 a day, isn't it? 16.50 an hour. Something like that. 32, 33 a day.
34,
34,
33, 33,
33.
33 a day.
Well, let me explain what it is what they have a U-shaped drive out there, and now the way they come out,
Yes.
both of those are full all the time, and then you have the middle school also that's overlapping, and you have the school parking lot down at the far end. So what you've got is really another extra entrance that wasn't used before.
It says high school, but it really helps both the middle and the high school for all the traffic.
Yes. The main problem is the buses trying to come out of
Right.
the high school, which gets mixed in with everything, so.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Thank you, Regina.
Thank you.
Staying in section 3 of your notebooks, gentlemen, we have a request, and we need approval and execution of a grant contract with the Tennessee Emergency Management Agency for a 2009 Homeland Security Grant. Mr. Allen.
Just what we're asking is just to go on to full commission for the mayor to sign the grant and execute all that needs to be done with it. It's a no matching fund contract, the ones we get every year. This one, though, is $478,621.
You got a breakdown of what that money's allocated for, going through.
I do, and what we have on this is on the, there's a couple of things going to Let's Talk and Intercity Communications for throughout the county. We have monies
You
going,
got copies for all of us.
I don't, but I can get you all copies of that. But it's a good representation of all of our county public safety and the cities. Sheriff's Office, each one of the PDs on tactical equipment, the fire departments, and mobile data units for the volunteer fire departments. And we have a few other things that they were monies on, like for Citizen Corps. We had a couple, about 2,500 in that, and that made up the total grant.
We got more last year, but we shared it through,
Oh no, we got less last year.
we got less last year.
Yes, sir.
I was thinking we got more that we shared with the municipalities or something, that it came through us. No?
No, sir.
Commissioner Bullen.
Do you go to conferences and listen to how people spend this money?
Yes, sir.
Are they having to sit around and think hard how to spend it now? They've been pouring money out of Washington on this now, huge sums. It seems to me that some counties ought to be reaching the point where they're really having to sit around and dig, thinking of something to spend it on.
That's true in some areas, in some cases. With us being in the UASI District 5, there are subcommittees put together, and in our county we have subcommittees that have go to the UASI subcommittees, and so they've been talking real well and making their requests. And the things that we're buying is what's going to benefit us as well as the UASI, all 7 counties, and help us and work together, and equipment to defend and support the needs of the citizens. So I think we've done a very good job.
So in a hypothetical question, if Congress called you before an investigating committee, you could sit there and look them straight in the eye and tell them exactly how we're spending it, and it's not a penny being wasted.
Yes, sir, sure can. We do everything. We have to go and use an AEL listing, which is authorized equipment list, and there's not one thing bought that's not approved by the state and federal government before we put a contract or a PO out on it.
Okay, thanks.
It takes time, slows it down, but I have to look out for our protection.
Motion to approve and authorize the grant.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandler.
Second.
And seconded by Commissioner Jordan.
Yeah, the grant is very restrictive as far as what the money can be spent
Very
on.
restrictive.
I mean, we have very little latitude, maybe different stuff within that list, but that's all. You could tweak it a little bit there, but that's about all you could do as far as moving the money around. Is that correct?
That is correct. Once it's approved and for that particular area, it has to be spent on that. You know, we don't have the privilege to say, well, I'm going to take some of this money and do this with it. Can't do it.
Let's put a copy of that document that defines where the monies are for the whole U.S. and put that in all the boxes.
Yes, sir.
Well, when I get mine, I'll be willing to vote on it. Still then, the answer will be no.
We'll just give him yours right now.
Well, you're going to wait a few minutes, let me read through it.
Sure.
I had given that to Commissioner Farley.
He didn't share it with me. Or anybody else on public safety that I'm aware of.
No, Mayor Clementia, we met.
Chairman, while we're waiting, could we call on the mayor for some happy news if something good's going on in the county?
My auditors are done.
We got an excellent
Is that good or
report from
bad?
them. Just got a letter, and they've had basically no findings of any consequence. So again, our finance department's done a wonderful job.
There's always good news.
I'm sure my wife's happy. I told her if Harley Davidson came here, I was going to have to get one. Second childhood.
Commissioner P., we'll
I'd rather-
respect your decision to wait till later if you would like to have more time.
Have you got a total for Rutherford County of how much? So this is it here?
Mhm.
All right.
And
Trying
you
to
see
add it.
every one of the counties in the U.S.
Is that
on
the
what
mun-
they get.
Is that the municipalities added into Rutherford County?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I don't have a problem with that, but we spend a world of money here, and most of us don't know where it's going, and I think it's our responsibility to know. And that's why I'd like to see this before, you know.
I'll put a copy of that in every one of your boxes, okay?
We do have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Eagle. Yes.
Okay, I'll make a copy of it now for that.
Gentlemen, if you'll turn, please, to Section 4 in your notebooks. We have a solid waste sanitation fund budget amendment. Mr. Nolan?
He's not in here, but in any event, during the tornado period, we took in a very large amount of brush, and we charged for that, and we had revenue. And what we are doing is we're having that ground. We took bids and we've had that ground up, and it's being hauled off. But in any event, we have more revenue than we even are asking for this grinding request here, but we have to take it out of
Because of that
our
came in last year.
undesignated fund, because that money came in last year, so we need to take some of that money that came in and pay these people for this grinding and removal of that, those limbs and all of those trees, et cetera.
Okay, $39,000 to provide funding to pay for the grinding and the removal of brush.
So we're doing the environmentally sound thing and grinding the brush and not burning the brush. It's more less. Well, some other counties would do this, Vernon, but less forward thinking. So a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Schaefer. Commissioner Schaefer?
Isn't this going to be used for something?
We don't know where they're taking it, what they're doing with it.
But the people that
They have some
that are
need for it,
doing
plus.
it have, yeah.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P. Commissioner Stanley.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Gentlemen, please turn to Section 6 in your notebook, and we're ready for the general purpose school fund budget amendments. Mr. Sandy. Hello. Hello.
The First Amendment uses $21,506 in regular education EA pay and $4,396 for related benefits to cover additional hours for the federal bookkeeper and accounting and minor corrections in classified pay or hours in my office of the principal, Function 72410, and human resources. The additional hours are needed in accounting because we'll only be able to charge half of the federal bookkeeper's time to federal consolidated administration due to program clarifications that have been received. These EA funds are available due to turnover. We aren't reducing any positions. The recommended motion is to amend $25,902 in pay and benefits from regular education EAs to other classified staff as presented.
And your next motion, we'll take it as one
All
vote.
right. The Second Amendment, the Christy Houston Foundation gave the school system a $34,345 grant to replace 41 of the system's defibrillators. This amendment budgets the grant and the related expenditure. And these defibrillators have become technologically obsolete. Parts weren't as available, and we got a trade in and all that. And just, we, across the county, see the, we greatly appreciate these grants from Christy Houston and the Jennings Jones Foundation. I'll have one of those to bring next month. But the requested motion is to amend $34,345 to account 44,570 contributions and gifts, and $34,345 to 72,120 735 health equipment for the Christy Houston Foundation grant to replace the system's defibrillators.
Gentlemen, if your motion would include these two motions, please.
Motion to approve both, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Sandlin.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Bullen. Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen.
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan.
Yes.
Commissioner P.
Yes.
Commissioner Stanley.
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. The lighting management
All right.
system?
And Mr. Gill and Mr. Clardy are both at the public hearing for rezoning, not rezoning, for the initial zoning of Oakland Middle School next year, so that's why.
Don't you wish you were there with them?
No, I'd rather be here. They may feel the same way, I don't know. But a couple of years, well, in 2005, we upgraded our fluorescent lights in the ballast, energy conservation plan and all that. Well, we worked with Scotty Karoom, and now the name of the company is Excel Energy Group, and he brought forward a proposal to put occupancy sensors for our lighting system as the second part of an energy conservation plan. The grant that y'all approved last month for county buildings does some of that also. Our school system is eligible, and it has been recorded in the fax system, so it's
really there.
It's really there for a $741,480 Energy Efficient Schools Initiative grant from the state. This grant will cover 31.7% of the total $2,337,515 project. There are two financing possibilities, and I believe Lisa will present a third. For the remaining $1,500,000 $596,035. We can get financing through EESI, which is state agency, of $500,000 at 0% for 7 years. That's just like we had on our first project. And the balance at 3% for 7 years for a blended rate of about 2.08%, or some kind of a Rutherford County bond issue. And of course, the financing decision is yours if you approve it. The guaranteed annual savings from the sensors would be $186,731. The Xcel Energy Group estimated annual payments of $246,188 to repay the interest and principal over 7 years. So each of the next 7 years, our net expenditure for these sensors would be $59,457, about $5,000.
These are just the sensors that shut the lights off.
Right.
When there's no movement or something, or,
Nope,
or at a certain time. Or...
It is movement and heat sensing. Yeah. Our original, the lighting upgrade, is already saving $135,711 a year in excess of the project payment. And that after TVA went through and calculated the savings, it came in at a higher number than we had planned on. In 2013, the bonds for the lighting upgrade will be paid off, and then we'll no longer be paying $690,229 in principal and interest, and have a positive cash flow from both projects of $814,000. And then once these bonds are paid off, our annual savings will be $1,060,000. So I think it's a good project to proceed with, and we are asking y'all's approval.
Yeah. So this is for every school?
Every school.
Every switch, every classroom, every...
There are some spaces that don't lend themselves
Not the
to
broom
this.
closet, of course, but every room and every place, yeah.
Gyms,
Yeah.
cafeterias, but some of the large open spaces don't lend themselves to this, but your smaller rooms, hallways, all of that.
I moved to accept it.
Second.
What was our other alternative?
Well, your options, one is to go through the state EESI, the 500 at 0 for 7 years, the balance 3% for 7 years, the effective rate of 208. I spoke with Sam, and he did feel like that was a good rate. I would not recommend doing a bond issue. The third alternative is a capital outlay note, basically for the schools borrowing the $1.1 million from the debt service fund to be paid back over 7 years. And you could set the rate at something less than 208 or at 0 or whatever. But that's the other option.
Which would you recommend?
The smoothest, quickest, easiest thing would be this interfund loan. One of the problems I had for today is that we don't have any loan documents to show you for the states because they don't have it yet.
I'd like to hear the mayor's comments on it.
I hadn't talked to Lisa about this last option, but this money would be coming, Lisa, out of the debt service reserve fund, is that correct?
It'll out of the debt service fund. It's still, instead of being cash, it's a note receivable, so it's still in our fund balance.
I understand it's in the fund
But
balance,
it'll
but
be-
it's dollars we've taken out of
it'll
there
be
for our reserve
$4
purposes.
million. So then that would be less interest that we have coming in.
This is just
to
an
fund.
off-the-cuff response, Dr. Bullen. We're going to need all the tools in our tool basket we can get next year to balance the budget, and if this would have any bearing on our ability, maybe that fund is the only fund that has, quote, a little bit of money that does have to be there right now, and we might need to move that for operating purposes. I'm just an observation.
On approximately 2 cents on the tax rate, on one-time money anyway, or per year, and I don't think anybody's going to want to vote for a tax increase come June. And if we can get this paid off in 7 years at 2.08%, I'd rather do that personally, and have a little more flexibility come June.
Yeah, I think we need it.
I mean,
Barney.
you are taking away some $1 million of your flexibility.
Yeah, well, revenues are coming in worse than projected, sales tax and things like that, and we're gonna have a crunch time come June, and so it's not putting ourselves into a corner any more than we have to, personally.
The only thing, and I don't think it will cause a problem, we don't have a loan document to put before you on either the 500,000 or the
You will
the
before
other
next
one.
week, if we-
See, I don't know. That may be a holdup because they're waiting on the state comptroller's office to complete the loan documents, not just for us, but for everybody.
Even if we have to wait another month, it is not that critical, is it, Mr. Stanley?
We have done what we can do in getting.
Can we
you
take
can
this
go with
under
approval
advisement and bring it
concept.
back up under next
I
month?
just,
Well, hopefully we can have it for
it's just a
next.
technical issue.
We can
You can
approve
approve the
it, you know,
concept.
the concept and what the paperwork to be
We
followed.
have been awarded, the loan amounts are based on an amount per ADM. You know, it's the
Or-
loan document catching up.
Or if you could say that, you know, we would do no more than 3% for 7 years.
Just to read the terms that he's outlined here, and then the actual loan agreement itself will have to be executed later when they provide it.
The school board's ending fund balance came in way over what we thought it was going to be. I mean, can they not pick it up underneath their ending fund balance?
The reason why I would not is the sales tax is 6% less than what it was last year.
Yeah.
They're going to be,
They're gonna be
they're going to be needing that fund balance
And-
if things don't turn around.
And because of the lag in getting our federal reimbursements from the state, we transferred up to $1 million last month, which is a short-term loan.
Timing issue.
A timing issue.
Well, I mean, they could do the 500,000 at the 0%, pick up the rest of the tab, half of it underneath their ending fund balance on the school. I mean, I don't see an issue with that. You're not talking about the whole
No,
9 yards under their ending fund balance.
Madam Chairman, I'm going to be recognized. I'm the one that made the motion. Since there's some concern about this, I'm withdrawing my motion till we can discuss this a little more about how we want to present this. I don't have documents there for one approach. I think we should do this, but if it can be delayed to a commission meeting and we decide it in there and we send it forward to be decided in, or we can put it off for another month, I'd like to hear a little more discussion on this, but I firmly believe we need to take advantage of this opportunity.
He's talking about his committee, Rob.
So you are withdrawing your motion?
Yeah, till we talk a little more here.
Okay.
to see
Commissioner
how
P.,
we
you
wanna
seconded
approach
that motion.
I withdraw, but, you know, my idea on the second there was, this was a concept. We hadn't even talked about, you know, digging into how we were going to finance it. I thought that was coming later, so evidently it is. So, yeah, I'll withdraw.
Do you have to have something approved by the commission before the state will generate the documents you need? 'Cause
I mean, they're not-
We should not. But we obviously are kind of on hold unless we went with some kind of project buy in stages, which I don't know with Mr. Karoon's, the way he marshals his forces and that hits all the schools. I don't know if that would be practical at this point. But and I talked to Ron Graham after you did, and he said that one of the issues holding up was changing the wording to accommodate special school districts. They didn't feel that was covered initially, but that the other governments were covered.
We should not do anything tonight that jeopardizes this. So that's why I'm asking us just bat this around a little bit.
Was there a timeline on, your concern was missing out on this award?
I am more comfortable that we will not miss out on it. I think we need to move forward on it in December, or we could be in.
So you bring it back through health and ed and back to budget.
Well,
The full circle
would it
back
just
in.
be the financing issue? Do you want it to
I
come
think
back
it's
to
just
health
the
and ed?
financing issue. I don't see any sense to go back through the education committee.
Okay.
again. Will's on there. Will's vice chairman. What do you think?
It's fine with me to come back here. I mean, I think, like Commissioner P said, we kind of thought the education committee that the decision will be made later, but apparently later is now, you know, but which way to go.
Well, is there is it worth approving the concept at this point?
Well, we could do that, but the mayor could get together with the school superintendent and the finance director to analyze this is the best way to go, but we could approve, I guess we could approve the concept tonight, but we're not arguing about that, I don't believe.
It's off the table. The sentiment is not to do the interfund loan.
Yes.
Is the question then, we want to do the $500,000 at 0 for 7 years, we do want to do that.
Do you have to do the other to
And
do
the
that?
other question,
Are they tied together?
I don't think so, not the way that reads.
I don't think they're tied, that you have to do one to do the other. I think the question is, can we have it all together so that the school board can enter into an agreement with Excel Energy Group to do the whole project? Which I think was the desire.
And on the last one, we did, we started with some of the schools. Did we start with the high school?
We did the half money because we borrowed the money later.
Right.
And
then
you went ahead and
moved
started.
in. We timed, when we were securing our borrowing schedule, we timed the implementation.
Let me get y'all to check it out, because there is an and in there. So it might be.
Well,
Do
really,
this
truly,
one.
we're just missing the loan agreements that would be supporting this, these two pieces. So really, I don't see why you can't approve it in concept, subject to the delivery of the loan agreements next time, and you can finalize that.
I don't have a problem with that.
Commissioner Bullen.
It's fine.
I'll just move then, we approve the concept and that the mayor and finance department and school super director come back with the exact directions on how to finance this.
Okay,
I'll
we
second that.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Commissioner Schaefer?
The second paragraph, Mr. Sandberg, it says the guaranteed annual savings. Tell me how, well, Excel is going to guarantee.
Well, as they did with the lights and the ballast, the methodology used across the country is there are standard burn times. So you go in and you look at the electricity you were using before and after based on the standard times and all that, and that's how.
And if the time goes down, if the
Yeah.
time's less than the.
Right.
That sounds
Yeah.
logical.
Yeah, and then that's pretty standard for the industry.
I'm always leery of a word that says guaranteed or never
Well,
or something
and
like
Mr.
that.
Karoom assured me if when the state, TVA goes through and does their analysis, he will reduce his cost to us if we do not hit these guarantees. So he's.
And that's all under contract, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And these are going to be put in relationship of our security, cameras and stuff that maybe lights can't be turned off in certain places or something.
Oh, of course. Oh, yes. Yeah.
So we still keep, the
Absolutely.
security aspect of it involved.
Okay, our motion is to approve the concept, and am I understanding then that the funding issue will come back and be on our agenda for next month's budget agenda?
Unless by chance the state has not approved the loan agreements by that point.
Okay.
They thought they'd have them in October.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
Thank you very much,
Gilly,
ladies.
is that all you have tonight?
That
Thank
is
you.
it.
Thank you, Mr. Sandy.
Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, please turn to Section 8 in your notebook. Mr. Corbett. Mr. Corbett will be presenting a resolution authorizing execution of an interagency contract for the promotion and implementation of Project Water Education for Teachers.
As you know, part of it is part of our stormwater program. We're required to do certain things. There's 6 aspects to that, and one aspect of it is public education. We have met with Smyrna, Laverne, and Murfreesboro, and as a committee came up with this Project WET. It's a national program that they put in the schools. They teach the teachers to do certain chapters on water quality and stormwater stuff. They've negotiated with, well, not negotiated, they've talked to the Discovery Center. There's a lady there who's certified to do the WET program. And the cost for that is, we've got in our budget a line item of $35,000. All that money, of that money, only $7,500 comes from the county. The rest of it comes from the cities. And it's broken down here. It's paid on a quarterly amount, and then we funnel $30,000 of it through our budget, of which we will bill the cities for their part. The additional $5,000 will go through Murfreesboro, where they'll buy kits that give to the teachers for this program. The money's already approved in the budget. What we're asking for is approval for the mayor to sign the resolution, which has already been passed by the communities, so that we can go forth with the program.
Motion to approve the
Commissioner
budget.
Schaefer, thank you. We have a motion. And the inter-agency contract agreement that is attached, yes. I do need a second. Thank you, Commissioner Salmon. Second. Discussion? Commissioner Schaefer?
What different grades who will be targeted in the schools? It's the teachers, but obviously you got high school and you got elementary.
You start out in elementary, and then as the program expands, you expand to middle school and then high school.
And they're actually going to teach it in a certain classroom, say in middle school and high school?
Yes.
When it gets to there, that it'll be selected
Be in
like
the science-
English,
it'll be-
since everybody takes English or
Well, it'll
something?
probably
Is
be
it-
like a chapter in a general science
Okay.
program to do it. The instructor, the lady we do the contract with, teaches, she puts on like an in-service for the teachers, but helps them with putting together the kits, and they have a curriculum that's already, it's a national curriculum. They go through that and introduce that into the schools.
Commissioner Bullen?
I just got one comment on this. It looks like it's a fine program, but everybody wants to teach something in public schools, and we don't have anybody here representing the public schools, but I imagine if we had a director of the instructional program, they would be saying we're already crammed and cramped with what we're already required to do. Where are you going to put this in and what goes out?
In comment to that, we've just met with Mr. Gill, and we met to get with us. There's already some instructions in WET going on. This is in the curriculum that they have going. What we're doing is just enlarging it, if you will. Again, part of the mandate from the federal feds is to do this education. This was a way for us as a county to get $35,000 worth of work for our $7,500. And so it meets the requirements. The cities all have the same requirement. They get credit toward their permit, which we file at the end of the year. We get credit for ours.
If you took all of the stormwater fees that are collected in this county from the municipalities in the county, would you say, what, 12 to 15 million a year is collected probably?
Well, I don't know the answer. I understand Murfreesboro collects about 1.2 to 1.4. I don't know what's more in Laverne.
I know Laverne's got for residential $3.50 a month, and it's more than that for commercial. And I wouldn't.
Yes,
I can't. I guess Consolidated gets a lot too, don't they?
Well, Consolidated, the only part that they get a fee for putting it on the bill. The money that goes to the municipality.
Okay. I can't believe that Murfreesboro doesn't get more.
Any further discussion?
Still, will we be paying more than what we're required to pay by going this route?
If we had to do it by ourselves, it would cost us about $30,000. We've got $7,500, and we're going to do it for less than that. We'll have some money left over, $200 or $300.
Another one of Commissioner Schaefer's federal mandates, run funding
Yeah,
mandates.
right.
He'd like so much.
I know where you pay for it every month unless you have a well.
They forced it to fund it themselves.
Well, for the city of Murfreesboro, I think the largest payer for the services is Rutherford County because of the schools and stuff.
The asphalt, good thing.
Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Gentlemen, please turn to Section 9, and Mr. Corbett will be presenting a recommendation from the City of Eagleville for the County Engineering Department to provide some inspection assistance.
City of Eagle approached us about the possibility of providing similar service that the Code Department supplies now. You've got the resolution that passed on the back page shows that in November 2001, we passed a resolution allowing the Code Department to do their inspection and charging $25 per inspection. So they're asking that they approach my office about potential inspecting their subdivision roads and stuff for stormwater, the quality of roads and stuff. They only have one subdivision, so, and it's pretty slow. It's only got one house and it's been on, I think, under 6 years or something. But anyway, our office can handle this. It's a service that they don't have done there now, and looking at the work's been done, they need it. So we're asking again that this go through and allow the mayor to sign the resolution, and we will provide the service.
Well, the people who live inside the city of Eagle are also county residents, and they need protection from buying houses and subdivisions that don't meet certain
We need
standards. And
to
also,
city Eagle with this,
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Stanton. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Mr. Corbett, have anything else?
That's it.
Thank you very much. Gentlemen, staying in Section 9 of your notebook, we have a request from the Industrial Development Board for the issuance of revenue bonds to Nissan. Mr. Sumner Bolden will join us, and Mr. Baker. And gentlemen, welcome. And if you have anyone else that you need to come to the table, if you would introduce those people and ask them to join us, please.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. If you will, I'll just ask the people, we've got representatives from Nissan and the IDB and the Chamber. I'll ask them just to stand and introduce themselves.
Okay, thank you. If you all will stand and introduce yourself, please.
I'm Steve Miller from the Tax Department of Nissan.
I'm Tom Sherrard, an attorney in Nashville representing Nissan.
Good evening. I'm Mark Swinson. I'm the Vice President of Engineering at the Nissan facility.
My name is Lana Suit. I'm with Younger Associates in Jackson, Tennessee.
Paul Latour, President of the Rutherford County Chamber of Commerce.
Holly Weber, Vice President, Economic Development, Rutherford County Chamber.
Thank you all and welcome.
To give you a little background, first also, I won't be talking about something, information you don't have. Do you have the executive summary distributed?
Yes.
Everyone's got a copy of that.
Gentlemen, it is in your notebook, the second document.
This project has been probably one that only comes along every so often on it. It's required the input, coordination, and approval of the federal government, the state government, IDB, and also the county commission. So it's been a matter of jumping through a lot of hoops. It's well worth it, considering the size of the project. Your executive summary gives you more or less what will be done there, and it's, most of you, I think, are certainly aware that the intent is to build an electric car and a battery to go with it. On it, the project the money will be loaned by the federal government. Nissan has been selected as the contractor to do that. Said there's been a lot of work put in to make this thing come about. Nissan has done a lot of the heavy lifting under it, but IDB has been involved in seeing what we agreed with the projections. Under it, the state of Tennessee is involved, of course. Now the county commission will need to issue or approve the issuance of industrial revenue bonds. Most of you are familiar with the terminology of industrial revenue bonds. They don't burden the county. You're not responsible for them. Doesn't limit the lending, the borrowing ability of the county on it. Before I get any further into that, you've got it said on your thing there. You can see that the number of jobs. You know that this is being done in actually 2 phases, with a 3rd phase in the wings. But even at the first phase, since we're talking about 1,300 new jobs with a payroll there at $53 million, and also the various sundry things that they will be doing. These are all hard numbers. You know, these numbers will happen. They're part of our inducement agreement with the company. So these are hard numbers. Let me give you some projected numbers that computers are a wonderful thing. They can throw out enough information. But if you and we use Younger and Associates, which I think many of you are familiar with. We've used them for quite some time to do projections on what the economic impact of an industry will be in the area. This industry will have major impact. Commissioner, you said somebody who has some good news. I view this as good news. But just to throw out a couple of things that the projections show, and the IDB reviews these projections, and we're in agreement with them. We're in agreement that this will produce indirectly in the county 10,708 jobs, in addition to the payroll jobs at Nissan. That would bring the total to 12,416. If you think we project that accurately, you've been smoking something. But they are very real numbers. They are not something that pie in the sky. They're based on what has happened in the past on this particular type of industry. You can generally talk about a 7 to 1 on an industry like this in terms of additional jobs that will be generated. We're talking about in the county or in the confines of Rutherford County. But if you, with that, then we're talking about total, the wages that would be paid by all of these things would be $525 million. Generate $11.3 million in new local taxes. Like I said, now they're based on projections, but they're good projections. And for as that matter, we've always insisted that the projections be very conservative. And so I think all of the past things that we've looked at, we've certainly met those. The point is around that, that everybody has begun to look at it and has part of the input to it. It's now to the county, by law, the county commission must approve industrial revenue bonds. So it is a request to the IDB that the county commission would approve the industrial revenue bonds in the amount that's specified in your thing. So with that, I'm going to turn any questions or anything that anybody has. We've got people here to answer.
Commissioner Sanders.
Well, I don't think it's good news. I think it's great news. I mean, this is an uplift in any community. So, I mean, we've been very appreciative of Nissan for a number of years and the growth of Nissan. The few questions that I have is basically, I don't mind signing on and let's doing it. We're a conduit anyway to this whole function, and I think it will not affect our loan capabilities or borrowing capabilities or bond, ratings or anything like that, which is it's major. But a couple of questions in the terms of the bonds, 20 years and not exceed such longer terms than all these other folks, where they can keep adjusting them out or whatever. That doesn't affect us neither. It's just a budgetary type situation, I guess.
By statute, Commissioner, the maximum period that we as a board can approve is 20 years. If you go beyond that, you need the permission of the Economic and Community Development Commissioner and the Comptroller. And thus the language that has a little play in there.
Still doesn't put the county in any
Oh, no.
kind of jeopardy or anything,
No.
or the IDB in any kind of jeopardy on there.
But the longer it goes, does change things, right, from the standpoint of taxes when you get to talking about payment in lieu of taxes versus.
It does, but it doesn't change the cost benefit ratio. Just but it may by a very small point or two, but it's basically 4-to-1 in all situations, because you have on the one hand an increased period of abatement, so you're forgiving that amount, but by the same token you're receiving additional revenues during that period of time, and you're also having new equipment placed in service, and so when you factor all that out, it basically is a wash in all the scenarios we've looked at.
So is it a safe statement to say that these projected revenues that we receive, if we didn't do this, we wouldn't get anything? So people might say, wait just a minute, this is money we wouldn't get at all if we didn't do something.
That's correct.
So we're really not giving away anything, in my opinion.
No, sir, and the participation of the Department of Energy requires local participation in the form of tax abatements and the issuance of revenue bonds. So our participation is a necessary ingredient to the project going at all. So you're right, we wouldn't get that money otherwise.
Commissioner Sandlin.
The other question I had was the 1,300 full-time jobs. Right now, well, with this projection here of the 53 million or whatever, that's 40,700 or so in a salary form for each one of these employees as far as a per 1,300. The jobs now in Nissan have really changed dramatically from when they started to what they are now, as far as there's a full-time, part-time, no insurance, that type thing. You don't like working here, you leave, we'll get somebody else. That's been I think it's been brought up, I think, by another commissioner, in the full commission, of some issues in health insurance and stuff like that. Are these full-time, part-time? Are these full-time benefited type jobs? Because this is a different building manufacturing plant, but it's still on the same property, I guess, of the Nissan property.
In effect, what our numbers show is what their total payroll and benefits will be, how they distribute it on this. If they can clarify that.
Steve?
Well, briefly, we have not made decisions yet. We're still studying the mix of full-time Nissan employees and full-time contract employees. We're about 3 years away from start of production, so there's a lot of those decisions yet to be made. Our estimates were based on some conservative numbers. We didn't want to, overpromise and underdeliver on wages, so we assumed on the low end.
Well, let me make it very clear. I don't want to get into your business and how you run your business, but I think it's very important of knowing what we're going into as in a contract-wise and as far as IDB, when we say or look or check or whatever, as far as meeting the requirements of this deal here of 1,300 full-time jobs at a certain time, are these 1,300 full-time jobs? So, and how that's structured, and there's two different ways. I mean, they're full-time right now, I think, but they're not benefit-wise full-time as you would think full-time. So,
No, these are full-time jobs, and in the corresponding payment in lieu of tax agreement, we have these threshold job numbers that have to be met and payroll numbers that have to be met.
that was the other question I wanted to ask you about. What we did a few years ago was extended that in lieu of taxes to 2022, I believe. And so that carries on here. We're not extending it another realm as far as what I saw in red or anything.
This is a standalone deal completely. Has no effect on what we've already done.
Okay.
I mean, can I follow up on what you said?
Yeah.
A question.
Go
He
ahead.
just asked about the full-time employee. I'm on page 3 of the agreement regarding pay in lieu of taxes. And it says, at least 1,300 full-time jobs comprised of both full-time company employees and full-time on-site contract personnel. And then it goes there. Okay, how about definitions of full-time company employees and full-time on-site? I think that's what you're really getting at, is what is the definition of those?
I'm gonna defer to Mr. Miller to define that, but from my perspective, it's full-time employees of a contractor or Nissan, and not a part-time employee. Steve, can you address that?
These are benefited jobs.
Okay.
There was a fringe rate applied, and that applied to all the wage assumptions.
Commissioner P., thank you for waiting.
On page 3 also, we're talking about the bond issuance there, which will be no less than 20 years, but not to exceed 40. What you're saying is you may, depending on which is more advantageous to you, make the length of the bond up to 40 years. Is that what you're saying?
It would run concurrent with the payment in lieu of tax agreement, and so.
That's what I was wanting to get back to, is actually how long is the payment in lieu of tax agreement for this deal?
We're still waiting on word from the comptroller and Commissioner of Economic and Community Development. So that's the reason that it's couched in the terms it's in. It can't be less than 20, no more than 40.
Sound like our school board a few minutes ago.
We can approve 20 without any further approval by the comptroller or such if we go wrong with that. And there is some desire and possibility to go somewhat longer than that. But due to the fact that this is on a fairly fast track, we're structuring based on 20 years that we minimum and the maximum of 40.
Well, you're saying then that their payment in lieu of taxes would be the same ratio today as it would be 40 years from now, because it was signed for 40 years.
And the benefit to cost ratio doesn't change enough to wink at, whether it's 20, 30, or 40. It's kind of a more benefit to the company, more benefit to the county if you look at longer periods.
One thing that, we did a few years ago is we basically gave your board the okay to agree to certain agreements, and I understand this has to be looked at by us. As far as the software that you use to look at the ratio of paybacks and things, where does this one land as far as payback compared to what we normally do with the bond issuance? There may not be a good comparison here, but I'm just...
Let me make sure I said, the benefit to cost ratio is something over 4 in all the scenarios that we run.
Basically 4 to 1.
They have a standard of 3 to 1.
We have to meet a 3 to 1 or seek commission approval for it.
But some of the smaller ones, I think, have come in with much greater than that. But
That's
we're not
right.
talking about $2.5 billion either.
And they're usually shorter term, and as you said, much smaller I think some people don't even own the land, so, you know, the tax, the benefits that you can give under that circumstances is more or less on personal property. So you might, in some cases there, you wind up with considerable, higher ratios.
Commissioner Sandlin.
This is the battery manufacturing plant, correct?
Both car and battery.
Both the car and the battery.
They will make the car, let me defer to...
It's the entire project. It's to modify the inside of Smyrna to produce the electric vehicle, and it's to build a completely new battery plant and equip that with the equipment necessary. It's the whole project.
If I understand this correctly, y'all, the IDB, is going to be holding the property.
Like we already do.
What does that do? And I mean, I'm thinking worst case scenario. I'm sorry, battery. A lot of stuff goes on with a battery and making a battery and the production of a battery and the accidents of batteries and whatever and the disposal of the stuff after you don't need the stuff that you make a battery out of, and I can keep on going. The land issue, the disposal issue, the hazardous issue, can you address that just a little bit? Or a lot? I mean, it's a concern. I mean,
well, I can address that. We've gone through.
Come on up here. Let's, because we have a problem with the.
We've gone through or are going through a full environmental assessment with the Department of Energy that's required to use federal funding for a project like this through the grant or the low interest loan program we've used. So the lithium ion technology that we have in a battery plant is not lead acid or any of those things, and we have to meet all of our waste permits, all of the environmental policies that we currently operate under. So the environment to wastewater, and I can tell you, the only wastewater that's going to come from this battery plant is from toilets. There is no wastewater generated from this. Air emissions are abated through technology. So environmentally, we're satisfying all the requirements from the Department of Energy through third-party counsel, and it's not environmentally hazardous at all.
Satisfying the requirements sounds good. A lot of companies are satisfying requirements, but I think Nissan in the past has gone beyond and above satisfying requirements, and I'm sure you'll probably continue on doing
absolutely.
that. But it's a question when you, for one, a lot of people can't even fathom, even myself, of an electric car. And that's great. I went to the thing over in Cool Springs and saw you do that, and excited about what it's going to do to our country. But in the same time, we can't kill ourselves by producing something that's going to save us. And I'm sure that's not going to happen. I know it's not going to happen, but I'm just saying there is a concern factor of when you say battery, because we think of the acid type, or I do. I shouldn't say about anybody else. I do.
Right.
I think of the acid type batteries and all the stuff and junk that goes along with it. But this is a totally different type of battery that you're using.
It is. And earlier this year, in July, we had to hold public hearings at the Smyrna Town Center with the Department of Energy by our side to open it up for anyone to come and ask questions and these concerns. And the information that we shared, I think, calmed a lot of those fears that you perceived that people would have. But just like you mentioned, this is not only going to change Rutherford County, this is going to change the world, in our opinion. And this plant and the way we go about it, we want to be recognized as the green company in the automotive industry and in the United States. So the building we do, the emissions that we emit, we know we're going to be under a microscope, and we want to portray that green image. Everything we do, whether it's solar panels on the roof or skylighting to eliminate electricity usage, it's not just making the battery, it's making the battery as best as we can. So my commitment to you guys is we'll continue that.
Great. Like I said, this isn't good news, this is great news.
Yeah.
But there's, man, as long as y'all do it right, I mean,
we will do it right.
I'm tickled pink.
Well, Jim, that gets me back to the question is, how can we give you an agreement if we don't have one for a period of time?
You do have an agreement. It's just you have the flexibility within this document. A minimum of 20, a maximum of up to whatever the comptroller and this ECD group approves. They have the flexibility to do that range.
But it's in a 4-to-1 payback in whichever way.
Whichever choice you
Whichever
make,
way it
whichever-
goes.
whichever
So
way they
it's-
choose.
It's a slam dunk at 20 and it's a slam dunk at
At
40.
40.
And as Mr. Baker
know.
said, they're literally hundreds of a percentage points different between the 20, 30, or 40 years.
But most of the things stay in place. You know, it's just a matter of how long of a snapshot do you take of the thing.
Commissioner Schaefer.
Yeah, I have a couple more. In one, if I remember, I was up at Smyrna at that presentation, and I live pretty close to the area over there. I live on the other side of Smyrna, but I wasn't worried about the bathroom for one thing. I was more worried about the airplane that they were going to put in the airport a few years ago. But all the parts for this car are, some of them are made in Japan and some of them are made here. Is everything assembled here?
For the car itself?
So, yeah.
The assembly is done here.
Yeah.
That's correct. The assembly of the battery is done here. Now, as Steve mentioned, we're still about 3 years away from this project launching. In fact, the battery plant is intended to launch in September of 12 and the vehicle in December of 12. So our sourcing plan isn't finalized yet, but we'll obviously have some components from various areas, but the assembly will all be done in Smyrna.
Another question. In here, I guess it's in, it talks about a community development fee. And I say it's $100,000 a year, and there's a couple of contingencies depending when it starts. Explain what a community development fee is.
The IDB collects varying amounts for community development from anybody who gets a tax abatement through the IDB, and they are paying a certain amount of community development. One of the last thing we used it for was, some of it for was the soccer, spring playing. We contributed 20,000. Whatever it was. But in other words, so it can't be used to do anything other than towards community development. Right?
Like nonprofit type thing.
Right.
Okay. And I got one more question. I don't know if that probably doesn't make a difference if I do ask it. But I just feel this past year, our General Assembly passed a bill in which it basically gives cars at the point of origin that are leased in this state that they do not need to pay a wheel tax, and they do not forget license tax for those vehicles as long as they're in existence. Okay. As it turns out, it was aimed at, I think, at Hamilton County and Chattanooga as an incentive there. But my question is, the only place it affects is Rutherford County, because y'all are the only ones that are providing leased vehicles from your plant. The one isn't in existence, and I don't believe Spring Hill, what's left there, uses it. My question is there any way that y'all would consider, keeping things the way they were from that standpoint? Because I've heard estimates for our county, it's anywhere between $100,000 and $300,000 it's going to cost us. And I don't know if y'all are the ones to say, but but that's just, I just want to point that out. That that's something that all of a sudden from last year to this next year, we're going to lose. I feel better now.
Well, I can just say that was not Nissan's legislation.
I know it was. We know
For Volkswagen.
I know. That's why I said
We could
Chattanooga.
probably talk to our legislators and see if they would amend what was passed, maybe, and that might be a better way to address that, hopefully.
Commissioner P., you mentioned the thing we are, standpoint of trying to go ahead and frame it into 20 to 40. And basically, if things stay on track, we would hope to close this year. So, and we've still got some things to go through with it, IDB, and of course we got to go to the commission, provided this committee recommends. So it's really on a fairly short track thing. And would you believe actually the federal government is pushing to get this project going? It's kind of odd to hear the federal government, want to move things along. So that's kind of the reason we are going ahead, and we have not actually heard from the commissioner, the comptroller yet. But that's the reason we're framing it this way. IDB, we can live with it either way, but regardless, the company can live with it either way. So,
well, I've never had y'all bring me wrong information, so I rely on what you're telling me here. And, giving me a lot more comfort zone there.
Mr. Bolton, you're happy as a legal expert, and so is Mr.
Swinson.
Mr.
Sherrard.
Yep.
Well, I can't speak for Mr. Sherrard, but yes, sir.
I guess if it's gotten this far, you all have crossed all the i's and dotted the t's, and vice versa, and everything, right?
Yes.
When you get two lawyers to agree on anything, you accomplish something.
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the agreement for the manufacturer for the IDB bonds, the payment in lieu of taxes, the way it's written, and the community development fee there.
May I suggest, Mr. Bolden, we discussed some language. Would it be helpful if I just maybe repeat that?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you see Commissioner Schaefer, if you will look, really, it was in the first part of your document, the very first page with the Nissan heading at the top. I'm just going to pull out some verbiage in that first paragraph. The motion would be very clear if we said you approve the issuance of industrial revenue bonds for the construction and equipment of a battery manufacturing plant and the provision of equipment to enable the applicant to assemble electric vehicles, and the initial authorization of up to $2.5 billion in revenue bonds. Now, should we put the time, the 20 years, not less than 20 years? That does not need to be in there. Is that enough information?
Yes, ma'am.
With period after bonds.
After bonds, yes.
I pretty much said that, but gotta go along. But, yeah.
Okay, that is Mr. Schaefer's motion.
Second
Thank you. And seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Any further discussion relative to this motion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes.
I do have one other question. It does state in that first paragraph, Nissan North America Incorporated, a California corporation. Shouldn't that be changing to a Tennessee corporation?
About a year and a half ago, didn't we?
We're presently incorporated in California.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, staying in section 9 of your notebooks, at the very back of that section, we have a development tax fund budget amendment. Mrs. Nolan.
And this is to provide funding for the Criminal Justice Center to pay legal fees in connection with the condemnations. We estimated with this last amendment that we brought to either last month or the month before, but my estimate was too low. So this should finish out the project, $2,695.
Also moved. Second.
Commissioner Jordan, seconded by Commissioner Sandlin. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen, Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Ely.
Yes. Under other business, Mr. Nunley and the mayor will be presenting an interlocal cooperation agreement for emergency communications between Rutherford County Communications District and Rutherford County, Tennessee, and I think Mr. Nunley put that at each of our places at the beginning of the meeting.
This
This agreement, basically what we're asking for is for permission for the mayor to sign the agreement. The agreement is necessary because there is money available from the state emergency communications district to our local emergency communications district for the purpose of training dispatchers and retraining dispatchers. They have to be not only trained, but they have to be recertified as well. This money's available to us, but we can't get the money unless we have the interlocal agreements. Murfreesboro has already signed and returned theirs. We sent one to Smyrna and one to Laverne, and this one is for Rutherford County, which has two PSAPs, the Sheriff's Department and Ambulance Service. Nothing in the agreement is new. Everything was already being done is listed in the agreement, and doesn't take any money.
So moved.
Commissioner Sandlin, thank you.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Jordan. Any further discussion? Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Bullen,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Schaefer,
Yes.
Commissioner Elam.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Unley. Is there any other business that needs to come before our committee?
For anybody watching TV out there, since our solid waste man wasn't able to be here tonight, I might mention that there is a hazardous waste collection this Saturday at the Florence Road City of Murfreesboro Recycling Center for hazardous material, paint, automotive fluids, things like that. We only get one of those a year now, so don't miss it. I don't know if it's better. 8 to 1. 8 to 1.
And that-
Household
I
hazardous.
think you said, what, only 5 sites approved this year? I mean, it's not all over the state.
Wilson County's not having one.
Yeah.
Expecting a lot of people. Wilson. 8 to 1, Florence Road, Saturday. Go green.
Go green.
Anything else?
To adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.